Imagine discovering a grave that had remained untouched for more than 60,000 years. Inside lies the skeleton of a Neanderthal, one of humanity's closest extinct relatives. But surrounding the body is something completely unexpected: tiny traces of flower pollen. At first glance, it sounds almost impossible. Could Neanderthals have deliberately buried their dead with flowers? If so, it would completely transform our understanding of these ancient humans. Instead of being primitive cave dwellers focused only on survival, they may have experienced grief, love, memory, and even ritual. But there is a catch. For decades, scientists have debated whether these flowers were truly placed there by Neanderthals, or whether nature itself created the illusion. Today, we are exploring one of archaeology's most fascinating mysteries, the famous flower burial and what it reveals about the emotional lives of Neanderthals. Around 400,000 years ago, a new human species evolved across Europe and Western Asia. These were the Neanderthals. They were shorter and more heavily built than modern humans, with powerful muscles, broad shoulders, and bodies perfectly adapted for surviving harsh Ice Age environments. For a long time, Neanderthals were portrayed as unintelligent brutes who barely understood the world around them. Modern discoveries tell a very different story. Neanderthals crafted sophisticated stone tools, mastered fire, hunted large animals, and even created adhesives by heating tree bark. They adapted to difficult environments and survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps most importantly, they were not strangers to us. Genetic evidence has shown that Neanderthals and modern humans interacted and had children together. Today, millions of people carry traces of Neanderthal DNA, proving that our histories are deeply connected. The idea that Neanderthals were fundamentally different from us is becoming harder to defend with every new discovery. One of the most important discoveries came from a cave in northern Iraq known as Shanidar Cave. During excavations in the late 1950s, archaeologists uncovered the remains of several Neanderthals buried within the cave. One skeleton, later known as Shanidar 4, would become world famous. When scientists examined the soil surrounding the skeleton, they found unusually large amounts of flower pollen. Not just a single species, but several different types of flowering plants. The discovery stunned researchers. The lead archaeologist proposed an extraordinary explanation. Perhaps Neanderthals had intentionally gathered flowers and placed them around the body during burial. The idea quickly captured public imagination. If true, this would represent one of the earliest known examples of symbolic behavior in human history. It would suggest that Neanderthals honored their dead, remembered loved ones, and perhaps even practiced rituals connected to death. Suddenly, Neanderthals appeared far more human than anyone had imagined. Flowers are not necessary for survival. They provide no protection from predators, no shelter from the cold, and no assistance in hunting. Yet humans across the world use flowers to express emotions. They are given as symbols of love, respect, sympathy, remembrance, and hope. Because flowers often carry emotional meaning, the possibility that Neanderthals used them in a burial was incredibly significant. It suggested that they may have understood symbolism and possessed emotional depth similar to our own. However, not everyone accepted this interpretation. Many scientists argued that pollen alone could not prove intentional behavior. Nature has many ways of moving pollen from one place to another. Wind can carry it across great distances. Water can transport it through soil and caves. Animals can unknowingly spread it while building nests or searching for food. One alternative explanation became particularly influential. Researchers suggested that burrowing rodents may have brought flowers and seeds into the cave long after the burial occurred. These animals often collect plant material and store it underground. If such activity happened near the grave, it could explain the concentration of pollen without requiring a ceremonial burial. This possibility sparked a scientific debate that continues to this day. Was the pollen evidence of one of humanity's earliest funeral rituals? Or was it simply the result of natural processes occurring over thousands of years? For decades, there was no clear answer. Then researchers returned to Shanidar Cave with modern technology and more advanced excavation techniques. New discoveries added fresh evidence to the discussion. Archaeologists uncovered additional Neanderthal remains buried within the same area of the cave. Some of these burials appeared deliberate, suggesting that Neanderthals may have repeatedly used this location to bury their dead. The bodies did not appear to have been randomly scattered. Instead, they seem to have been carefully placed. Although the new discoveries did not definitively prove that flowers had been used, they strengthened the broader argument that Neanderthals practiced intentional burial rituals. The debate began to shift. Rather than questioning whether Neanderthals buried their dead at all, researchers increasingly focused on how sophisticated those burial practices might have been. Evidence of compassion among Neanderthals extends far beyond burial sites. One of the most remarkable examples comes from another skeleton discovered at Shanidar Cave. This individual had suffered severe injuries during his lifetime. He had significant hearing loss, damage to one arm, and multiple physical impairments that would have made survival extremely difficult. Yet he lived for many years after these injuries occurred. In the harsh conditions of the Ice Age, surviving with such disabilities would have been nearly impossible without assistance. The most likely explanation is that other members of his group cared for him. They may have shared food, protected him from danger, and helped him survive despite his limitations. This suggests a level of empathy and social responsibility rarely associated with the old stereotype of Neanderthals. Whether or not they buried their dead with flowers, they clearly cared for one another. One of the greatest challenges in studying ancient humans is that emotions do not leave direct evidence behind. Love does not fossilize. Grief leaves no visible mark in the archaeological record. Scientists cannot directly observe what Neanderthals felt tens of thousands of years ago. Intentional burials, care for injured individuals, repeated use of burial locations, and possible symbolic practices all provide clues about how Neanderthals viewed the world. Taken together, these discoveries suggest that Neanderthals possessed rich social lives and meaningful relationships. They may not have thought exactly as modern humans do, but they were far from emotionless. The more we learn about them, the more familiar they appear. Today, the flower burial remains one of archaeology's most intriguing mysteries. Some researchers continue to believe that flowers were intentionally placed beside the dead. Others remain convinced that natural processes provide a better explanation. The evidence is still debated, and the final answer may never be known. Yet regardless of who is correct, one thing is certain. Instead, they examine behavior. Neanderthals were far more complex than earlier generations of scientists believed. They survived for hundreds of thousands of years across vast regions of Europe and Asia. They adapted to changing climates, developed impressive technologies, and formed strong social bonds. Their eventual disappearance around 40,000 years ago was not simply the result of being less intelligent than modern humans. Instead, it likely involved a combination of environmental changes, competition, and interbreeding with our ancestors. In a very real sense, Neanderthals never completely vanished. Part of their genetic legacy survives within millions of people alive today. The mystery of the flowers may never be fully solved. Perhaps Neanderthals gathered colorful blooms to honor someone they loved. Perhaps the pollen arrived naturally through the actions of animals, wind, or water. Whatever the truth may be, the discovery forced us to reconsider a profound question. What does it really mean to be human? Is it intelligence? Language? Technology? Or is it our ability to care for one another, remember the dead, and find meaning in loss? If Neanderthals shared even some of these qualities, then they were never as different from us as we once imagined. And when we look into the distant past, we may not be looking at strangers at all. We may be looking at another branch of our own family tree.